All right, we've got a new project this week that we're going to talk about. It's a 6-drawer chest. It doesn't have any manufacturer's mark in the drawer, which usually they do. Decent hardware. I think we might save that. Beautiful moldings, lots of moldings. It's even got nice moldings down at the bottom. So the first thing we're going to do is take the hardware off of this piece, and then we're going to go ahead and get it all scrubbed down. Again, you want to clean before you do anything like sanding or anything, because you don't want those oils and dust particles going and getting pushed into the fibers of the wood. So always clean before you start doing anything. No sanding or anything. I know that it doesn't make sense to clean before you get sanding dust all over it, but trust me, it will interfere with your paint if you do not clean before. Okay, now that we've got this piece all clean, we'll take a look at what the problems are with the finish. It looks like somebody had a piece of glass on it at some point, and the glass is just heated up and really done a number on the shellac. Somebody has done a coat of shellac on it, but they did it over the original finish, so it's not very good anyhow. We've also got chipping veneer here on the top, and it is a veneered piece. Probably poplar under would be my best guess. A chipping veneer here. I've already put a little bit of Bondo on that. And the drawers have veneer issues as well. The feet just kind of look like they've been in a war zone. They've, got little bits of wood coming off of them. Now, I'm sure that I could buy a veneer to fix this with, but it would be expensive. The piece of veneer would be rather costly. And this is not an antique at all. It's probably late 80s, early 90s. Cost analysis, it would not pay me to buy an expensive veneer, do the veneer repairs, re-shellac everything. Labor and time wise, it just would not pay me to do that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sand this down, I'm going to paint it, I'm going to do some other things to it, and that's where it comes in very handy to know what your market will bear. You have to know what this type of furniture is going to sell for before you ever buy it. You need to know, if you're going to resell furniture, you need to know what these sell for. Do some looking on Marketplace. Go to some booths and look at what people are selling and what they're selling it for, because you can buy a piece and somebody will say, oh, that's worth this amount of money, but it's only worth what somebody's going to pay for it when it comes down to it. And what they will pay in California or New York or Seattle will be different from what they will pay in Ohio, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina. So keep that in mind, that when you tell someone, oh, I wouldn't sell it for under this, or I wouldn't think you'd get more than that. It depends on where you're selling as to what your market will bear. When you want to hit the ceiling on a piece, what you're going to have to do to it to get that top dollar out of it, so that okay, if I pay X amount for it, it's only going to sell for this amount, and so I can only put this amount in it, labor and product, so that you know what you're going to sell it for. I'm going to start doing the repairs on this veneer, and then do some Bondo work and sand it down, and we will meet back up for the next step. Okay, after a whole lot of scrubbing with acetone, I finally got off the finish that was on here. And what we are left with is naked wood. Looks like it could be mahogany or cherry. Not an expert, I can't identify woods very well, but it is a red tone. So we are going to have to work very hard to keep those tannins from coming through this wood. So I'm going to go ahead, get out my Ben's primer, go ahead and start priming this piece. It's going to take at least 3 coats, possibly some shellac spray, but we're going to go ahead and start trying to keep this from turning pink. So let's get started. Okay, I use a Whiz flock roller to put on my Bens. It just makes it smoother finish for me, so I prefer to do it that way. You could do it with a brush, whatever you choose, but these are my go-to. Keep in mind that Ben's is very thin and prone to running, so keep checking on it, making sure you don't have big runs going down your piece. And it dries really quickly because it is shellac based, so I do expect this to turn a lovely shade of pink, because it's definitely gonna bleed. And if you don't know what that means, I'll show you in just a bit, because it won't take long. Now we're gonna sand in between every coat. That ensures that you won't have any dust particles or anything in there, and give you a nice smooth finish to work with. So be sure that you consciously go through and sand in between every coat. When we say that something's gonna have bleed through in it, I thought I would show you what that looks like, and hopefully this is going to show up well. It is when the tannins of a dark colored wood or a redwood like mahogany or cherry bleed through and the tannins come up and show through your paint. It can also happen with knot holes like in a pine or something like that. You'll see like little brown spots if you're doing a light color. And that's what we mean when we say bleed through. So I wanted to give y'all a kind of a visual on that. Not sure. Hopefully that's showing up well. So it will take several coats to cover that. But say that you were in the middle of painting something white and you ended up with just a small spot of that. What you could do is take your Ben shellac and just give it just a light spritz, just a light spray. Let that dry and then go over it again, and that will stop it as well. So hopefully that'll help you if you're painting something and you end up with the problem of just a little bit showing through. Otherwise, just keep using your Bens. If it's really bad, like I did have a china hutch that had never been shellacked before on the inside, and no matter how many coats of Bens I put on that, it would not work. I ended up having to spray the entire inside with this, then putting 2 more coats of Bens on it, and that sorted it right out. And you may have to do that, so just keep that in mind if that's happening to you, to get your shellac spray, spray it, and then use your Bens over that, and then that will give you good coverage and stop those bleed throughs from happening. But most of the time, 9 times out of 10, Bens will sort it right out for you. But sometimes you might get that stubborn one that stops it. Now that we've got our molds made, I used Aviary and Cherry Blossom. Both of them are redesigned with Prima. What we're going to do is we're going to start gluing them on. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've kind of laid them out in the general area that I'm going to put them. And then I'm going to start, I've got this laid flat on a rolling cart, and I'm going to just go ahead and start gluing them down. And I'm going to be wanting this piece to come over just like this. So we're just going to take our utility knife and go ahead and cut that. If they're fresh out of the mold, much easier to cut these. Once you cut through a little bit, you can then just go ahead and break it. And we'll put it back here. And we'll just glue those down now. It is a long process when you're doing a project this big. But yeah, we're probably talking days or a day of gluing down all the molds for this piece. I've been testing out some different epoxies, and this one that I used it's clear, so we're going to put it up here like this, I think. Yep. Sometimes it is really hard to tell how something's going to look until it's painted up. So if you find that that's the case, that's okay. It's not unusual. But yeah, and then once you get it painted up, you may see that you want to add some more molds or whatever, but that's okay as long as you get the general idea here, then you can kind of work with it. We're just going to keep moving up the piece and adding on all of our appliques, and then I will let you see once we get a little more progress. Here's where we are with the big dresser. I have stood it up, took a look at all the moldings that I've put on it, and I've decided that it needs a bit more. I don't quite have enough made, so I'm gonna have to make up a couple more. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. And the first thing that you wanna do is you wanna make sure that your surface is level. Now, if you remember, my shop is in the basement and my floors slope, just in case the basement ever floods, it slopes so that the water goes into a sump pump. And because of the situation I have, I always have to take a small little level and make sure that we're level in both directions. Yeah, so my bubble's pretty good, and now we can take that away. Put my molds on this little board. I had to order more molding liquid, and I'll show you the one that I really like. It is Amazing Casting Resin. I buy this off of Amazon. All right, so we're gonna mix equal parts A and B. I know that the cup that they sent me for mixing is not big enough, so I'm just going to use a little Dixie cup, and then we're just going to stir these together. Now, if this were a clear cup, you would see that it turns kind of a cloudy white, and then it will turn clear. And when it turns back clear, then that means that you have mixed it enough to go ahead and pour. It usually takes 10 to 15 minutes or so, depending on temperatures and humidity. Okay, now that they've turned white, they're ready to come out of their little molds. So we're just going to pull the mold back just a bit. Just kind of loosens it up a bit. Little flower and a big one. And they just pull out any little bits that you have on there that need to come off. They come off quite easy. You just kind of pick them off. Okay, now that we have all the molds on this piece and we've got it stood back up, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a base coat. And I'm gonna do that with a lot of texture in it. We're gonna do some paint layering on this piece. So what I've done is I've mixed up a chalk paint that is black, but it's not like really dark black. It's
kind of a gray black. And we're just going to start putting this on, and we want to brush in every direction, making lots of texture. And we're gonna kind of put it on kind of thick. So let's get started with that. And more of a kind of a stippling than a brush. These moldings, it's okay if they're not that textured, but the rest of it we're going to really kind of just daubing. Now you don't need a great brush to do this. In fact, an older brush probably is recommended because it could damage the brush. I'm trying to be quite careful, but I may change brushes here in a bit just to be sure that I don't mess up this brush. Quite like these. Yeah, let's change brushes. We don't want it runny, but we just kind of want to brush in every direction and just put lots of texture in it. And if you can, it's best to do this one and your base coat and then let it dry overnight. That way everything is nice and solid. In hindsight, I do wish that I had used a gray primer on this, but it's okay. It's just going to take a bit more layers to get this piece to the depth that I want it. But since we're layering paint, it's going to be okay. So sometimes you just have to work with what you have got. And I'm okay with that. You want to wonder how to work the back of those arms? This will do it. Okay, so we are back today. We've let this dry overnight. That's the first coat of the black. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a second coat on now. Again, adding texture. We don't want this to be a nice smooth finish. We want it to have some feel. Now there are a lot of ways to get texture into paint. One of those ways is a salt wash. If you just want to add layering, then this will be fine. But if you're really wanting a rough feel look, then a salt wash is probably the best way to go. We may try that in the future on another piece, but kind of have an idea of what I want to do with this piece, and we'll just see where it goes. So I'm going to put on another layer exactly the same way I did the first one. So we're not gonna watch second layer going on, and then we'll get to the next part.
Now we have all of the black paint on this piece. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start layering some colors on. And what I've got here is just a, I believe it's a cocoa color. I've mixed it, but it's kind of a cocoa color. And we're just gonna start layering that around, and we're gonna more or less dry brush it. My brush is really dry, and I've put a little bit of paint on it, and I'm just offloading it onto my little plate here. And we're just gonna tap. And tapping is just gonna spread that color around. We wanna be able to see the black through. So we don't want a lot of color. We just want just be able to see through it. And you don't want it to look too, you don't want the same motion all the way across. You don't want little marks. You want it all over the place. So kind of swirl that brush a little bit. Move it around, change its direction. Offload some more paint. And just remember, you're gonna add more color, so it's okay if spots are light, because that's what you want. You want to be able to see through it. The thicker the paint is, the more texture that you're going to have in your piece. So keep that in mind. That's why chalk paint is such a good choice for doing something like this, because it is quite thick, and you can get the textures that you want. If you don't like something, say you decide, oh, you know what, that color just doesn't work for me, you can go back, paint your black over it again, keep going. When I get down here to these moldings, I'm more or less just kind of dry brushing them. I don't want a lot of paint on them. I want those nice lowlights to show up in there. And as we're going to be adding a lot more colors, we don't want to add too much paint in there and distort those beautiful details. And don't worry if it looks like a hot mess, because you're adding more colors, and you've got to be able to trust the process, because right now you're probably looking at this going, oh, what is she doing? But it'll turn out beautiful when I'm done. At least I think it will. I've got to trust the process. If you like our channel and you like our content, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Watch the commercials. All of this helps to support the channel. We're so grateful for the response that you've given us so far. And you can see how just tapping it around is just helping to move that paint about. And you can see how bad this can be for a brush. So, don't use one of your new brushes. If you've got a chip brush that doesn't shed, that's a great one to use. You just want something that's going to give you good texture and just staying power. Got a little bit of black. I'm just going to go back and blend that a bit more. Nothing is permanent when it's paint. And then once things start drying, you can go back and refine it even more once you see what that look's going to be. One thing that everybody might want to do is, if you want to try a technique or a color combination that you're not really sure is going to work, rather than do it on a project that's, huge, try it on something small first. Keep around a piece of furniture, like a nightstand or something small, jewelry box even, that you can try out techniques on. Strip it down, try out different color combos, and that way you're not wasting a great deal of product and time on a big project
only to realize later that, oh dear, that just doesn't work at all. Sometimes that helps people who are unsure about projects that they're doing and, you know, how they're going to work out. So sometimes it can save you some time and money to just test it out. Especially if you're doing something, you know, and it's new to you. And if you get discouraged easily, that can help you not to make a costly mistake. And at that point, I don't really consider them mistakes. I consider them learning experiences. Because every time you do a project, I don't care how much experience you have, they all respond differently, and they all take on different ways that you feel. You may not have been feeling that project that day, and you know, you've done it 1,000 times, and you know it looks good, but something about it that day just does not work. And sometimes you might have done the same technique before, and it looked fantastic on that project. You do it again on another one, and it just doesn't look as good, or something's off with it. And a lot of times it's about the mood you're in. You know, as y'all can tell by the videos, I don't have a formula. I just see something, decide that, oh, that's what I'm going to do to it. And I'll be honest, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes I may end up painting something again. All right, so that's that color done. And we're gonna see what other color we're gonna put on here. I will be honest with you, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do next, but we'll find out together. I have an idea, but I don't know if it's gonna work. All right, here's our next color. It's kind of a blue. And I've just got a piece of cardboard that I'm offloading onto. And we're just gonna start adding that color in. Super, super, super soft hand on this one. And a lot of offloading. You can see where this is just bringing out kind of the textures that we've been putting in, which is what we want. I mean, we're offloading to the point where we've almost got no paint on the brush. This is the beauty of doing a paint job like this. Get too heavy-handed, go back with your other colors and just tone them down until you come out with that look that you want. This one I'm finding that doing kind of a swirl technique is showing up that texture that I want to see and still letting those other colors shine through. I did a sweeping motion here and I've got some streaks there that I'm not really happy with, so I'll go back with my other colors, touch those up later, I like doing a sweeping motion over all those details. That works, but not so much on the body. So just sweep those details and then maybe swirl that body in, and that will give me the look that I am going for. And then here and there, a little bit of heavier, I think looks quite nice. Sweeping over these details is really making them just highlighting them so nice, because it gives them such dimension. Every once in a while, be sure that you take a step back from your project. Look at it as a whole. Now, standing way back, looking here where I thought it was heavy, actually looks quite good. Oh yeah, I'm feeling this one. I am loving it. I wasn't sure, but now I am. I love it. I hope you love it too. Remember, hit that like button, subscribe. It's never a dull moment around here. Well, most of the time it's not. I watch a lot of paint dry though. This technique can be quite murderous on brushes, so just be sure not to use your nice expensive ones when you're doing this technique. I mean, it really is murderous on them. So we finished this piece and it looks fantastic. I am so pleased with the way that it came out. All the appliques on it. We took the hardware and put a little bit of gold, a little bit of copper, a little bit of black wax on it after cleaning them up, and they look fantastic as well. The drawers are all nice and pretty inside, and the colors just came together so beautifully. On the moldings on the sides and the front, and even some on the front, I've put a little bit of copper in there just to pump it up just a little bit. I didn't want a lot of bling, but I did want a little bit more something to it. And it looks fantastic. So I hope you love it, and we'll see you next video. I just can't quit looking at it. It just does not look like my piece.
Got 9 hours of video saying it is your piece.
If you enjoy the video, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button. We love it when you leave us a comment.